right, welcome everybody and those online to the Hokitika Rating District Joint Committee meeting this Thursday, the 9th of April 2026. I have an apology from Paul Madgwick. Do we have any other apologies from anybody? Okay, can I ask for a mover and a seconder for those apologies? Thanks. Seconded, thanks. All in favour?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Call for any declarations of interest? Okay. Public forum, no public forum. Late items, no late items. Confirmation of minutes. So this is the Hokitika Rating District Joint Committee meeting minutes for the 27th of August 2025. Would somebody who has read those minutes and was present move?
Happy to move that, Mr. Chair.
Happy to second.
Second, thanks, Helen. All right, all in favour? Against? Motion carried. Now moving on to the actions list. Over to you, Michael.
Sure, so I'll represent everybody and bring them to the table. So I'll just give you a summary of what we're going through today. So I want to just acknowledge where the program sits. The capital works, the Hokitika program is active and moving forward. We've got stages 1A and 1B of stop bank complete. Stage 3 is in design and procurement. Temporary seawall, we've got consent, new application, and extended abatement timeline. There's a significant body of work under today. We want to make sure the committee is fully across it and leave with clear decisions they need. We've got 4 papers. The first is talking about the terms of reference, which reflects the amendments the committee requested in the last meeting in August, and also a few options put forward how we can better engage with the Hokitika community. Second paper is about an update with the IRG and Rift Capital projects, covering the progress of stage 3, seawall consenting situation, and where we sit with the potential tranche 3 funding. The third paper is about the rating district final accounts for 24-25, along with the current low position and the forward funded picture. And finally, we've got the annual works, which is covering 24-25, which is underway, and proposed rating strike for 26-27. So I'll just go through the actions there, and then I'll go on to the papers. So action 1 is 0035. That's a report indicating coastal protection project costs and potential rating based on differential property values. That is covered off on 9.3. So we'll come to that inside the agenda. Action item 0037 is to review the Hokitika Rating District Joint Committee terms of reference, as I've spoken about. That is agenda item 9.1. We're also talking about with 0038, which is address the Hokitika Rating District Joint Committee regarding inclusion of new subdivisions such as the seawall and racecourse into the rating district. That was covered off in the previous meeting, and we referenced 8.1 on that. And the last one, which is 0044, we addressed a concern about a newspaper headline suggesting the seawall extension plan had been scrapped and asked for a correction to be requested. So the West Coast Regional Council's communication engagement staff communicated the error to the Hokitika Guardian, and we can't confirm if they actually retracted what they actually did.
Thanks, Michael. So just dealing with the actions list, the recommendation for the committee resolves to receive the report and information noted. Do I have a mover for that?
Happy to.
Seconder? Thanks,
Happy
Andy.
to.
All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Okay, Michael, back to you. Oh, Chair's report. Hold on. So This is obviously my first rating district meeting in terms, or not rating district meeting, but in the Hokitika Rating District Joint Committee meeting. So it's great to be here today. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Tom from the West Coast Regional Council, who has done a great job in introducing me to the infrastructure that this particular district deals with. It's been very, very helpful. I've managed to be introduced to the work that's going on, has gone on, and is going on into the future. So very, very helpful, Tom. Thanks very much for that. And looking forward to working with this committee going forward. So thank you. Can I ask for a mover for that report? Thanks, Andy. Seconder. Thanks. So all in favour? Against? Motion carries. So 9.1, updated Hokitika Rating District Joint Agreement and Terms of Reference.
Right. Right, Tom up to get that report.
Thanks, Michael. Afternoon, committee members. So the backstory to this one is based on some representations from some of the members of the community at this committee, I think 2 meetings ago. Last meeting I brought a revised and updated, proposed revised and updated version of the terms of reference to this committee to include 2 community representatives on the committee, and also address a range of other more minor issues within the terms of reference, trying to bring it into line with the terms of reference that we have for other joint committees, and just clarify some of the terminology. So at the last joint committee meeting, committee members were a little uneasy about the idea of adding to the size of the committee by introducing community representatives, and asked us to consider a range of other measures that could be used to increase engagement with the community over flood and coastal protection issues around the rating district here. So what you have in front of you is 2 things. The first thing is a further revision of the terms of reference, removing the provision for community representation on the committee. But
Tom, can I just ask you to raise your voice a wee bit, because the members online are just struggling to hear you.
okay, yeah, thanks for letting me know. So what you have in front of you is 2 things. The first one is a further revision of the terms of reference, removing the provision for community representation on the committee, but retaining the other amendments that we sought to have made. So we're asking the committee to approve that version, which will then go to council, or the respective councils for endorse that version, which will then go to the respective councils for approval. The second thing you have in front of you is a proposed range of measures for improving our methods of engaging with the community over flood and coastal protection. Happy to field any questions.
Any questions? Thanks, Tom. All right. So anything further, Tom?
No, nothing further.
Nothing further?
So back to the recommendation.
Yes. Okay, so the recommendation is recommended that the committee resolve to 1, receive the report, 2, endorse the updated joint committee agreement and terms of reference, 9th of April 2026, reflecting the changes requested at the last meeting, and refer to attachment 1, and 3, approve that West Coast Regional Council, working with key partners, lead the development of proposed communication and engagement approaches consistent with those outlined in this report. We have a mover for that. Thank you, Andy. Seconder?
Yep.
Thanks, Riley. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Thanks, Tom. 9.2. IRG shovel ready and IRF flood resilience projects update. Tom, you again?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. So what I'm wanting to do here is provide the committee with an update on major capital projects that we have underway in Hokitika since the last committee meeting in August last year. And I'll start with the proposed seawall extension and temporary seawall out the front of town here. So many members that were on the committee previous training might remember Regional Council had lodged applications for both the proposed seawall extension and the temporary seawall. We had a change of tack and formally withdrew both of those applications in July last year. And the proposed seawall extension from Stafford Street through to Richards Drive will not be progressed at this time until long-term strategy for managing coastal hazards is developed and agreed with the community. And I'll come back to that. What's part of the recommendations? Yeah. Regional Council there being considered two options for the temporary seawall, which was either removal or apply for retrospective consent. The risk assessment that we carried out or concluded that the seawall provides some modest but meaningful reduction in the erosion of vegetated dune in front of residences on River Street. And to remove it now would increase risk as the current erosion bight, which is sitting out in front of the beachfront hotel at the moment, works its way north over the next year or so. Therefore, we elected to apply for retrospective consent from both WDC and Regional Council for a term of 5 years, including maintenance, to enable WDC and Regional Council to develop a long-term strategy for managing coastal hazards, and that's what I'm referring to the recommendation. Both those consent applications were lodged on the 26th of February and are currently being processed by both agencies. Any questions on seawall related matters?
Questions, Dan? Questions?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So moving on to the flood protection scheme, as reported previously, both stages 1A and 1B, which run between Town Belt East and State Highway 6, were completed in 2023 and 2024 respectively. And our focus is now on stage 3, which runs from State Highway 6 down to roughly opposite the toilets at Sunset Point there. So over the last few months, we've been quite busy on that front. We've held initial consultation with DOC, Heritage New Zealand, Westland District Council and Ngāti Wairau. We have civil and geotechnical engineers, an RMA planner, an archaeologist and a landscape architect engaged. We've all but completed the design of the repair to a section of the riprap in front of the stop bank on the lower 300 metre ridge below the boat ramp, and that design has been peer reviewed and is ready for finalising. We have issued a request for tender for vegetation removal on that 300 metre ridge, that lower 300 metre ridge, and we've identified a preferred contractor. So the intention there was to get a portion of physical work underway this financial year to meet our contractual obligations with Kānai, funding partner. The rip-rap repair got a bit complicated from a consenting point of view, and we weren't going to be able to get through the consenting process in time to achieve starting the work this financial year, so we've just put that on hold, but we will proceed with the vegetation clearance on that lower 300 metre ridge starting later this month and finished in about a month's time. In the meantime, design and consenting for the remaining rip-rap repair and the stock bank raise itself will progress through to around November this year, and construction will follow that through 2027 and into 2028. So any questions on progress with the flood protection scheme upgrade?
Questions, team? Hello?
Yes, Tom, can you hear me?
Oh, is it Earl? Earl?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Tom, what's your plan for the custom house building? Are you going to shift that early or late, or what's the plan?
Earl, I can't tell you off the top of my head at what point in the construction process that's intended to happen. I'm sorry, I can come back to you on that one off the line if you like.
Yep, all good, thanks.
Hello?
Yeah, Tom, thank you for the report. So is this being pushed out over a longer period of time? Because I thought originally that we were hoping to have this completed by 26, or have I got this one wrong?
No, you're correct there, Neil Ash. We have extended the time frame for delivery on this one. In a large part, as we've progressed the early investigation and design work, some elements of the job have become a little bit more complicated than we initially thought. The consultation requirements are going to be involved for consent as well, and there's an aspect of the nature of the contract that we have with Kānai in terms of achieving timeframes. We felt better to extend the timeframe and overachieve rather than have the timeframe too tight and underachieve.
Thank you. I understand that. Just one concern I've got on the riverbed there, in particular on that side, is the rising of the riverbed. It's about 2.5 foot shallower now to what it was a year ago on that side in particular. And at low tide, you can actually walk from the boat ramp across to the middle island. Whitebait season last year, you could walk through to knee-deep water. Now you can walk through there at ankle-deep water. I've done it myself several times. I am getting a little bit concerned that it's giving us less freeboard now when we get some floods in that river to what we had. But I'm also a little bit concerned that the water that runs through the back cut past the dairy company's outflow, I don't believe that's been opened up, and I believe that could be contributing to some of the problem we're seeing with that build-up in the riverbed. There's no flow coming down behind the dairy company, and that used to keep that area, quite fresh and free of raising. So maybe in the interim, we need to look at something there to eliminate potential risks that we don't need to have.
So Neil Ash, my understanding is based on our mean bed level survey program. So this is a regular program. Every 3 to 5 years, we survey the height of the riverbed along established cross sections. The riverbed here, the channels move around and parts of the bed rise and fall as the channels take preferential alignments, but generally it remains stable in terms of its overall bed level historically, and we are due to do another mean bed level survey over the next few months. I think that's coming up early in the next financial year, so we'll be able to give you some additional certainty on what's happening long-term trend-wise with the bed following that.
Thanks, Tom, for that. Yeah, because it is concerning me at the moment, especially with the stop bank being a little bit further away from being done, that the more rise we get on that side, the more vulnerable we are to overflow into the township. So, yeah.
Yeah, so if this helps you, if the bed level is increasing on the true right bank, then it may well be decreasing in the centre of the river or on the left bank, which means that water that the depth is displaced over to the other side of the river, and it doesn't affect the river level itself in terms of its risk to the stop bank.
The river's actually cutting into that centre island on the south, on the that centre island, the northern side of that centre island is taken away roughly about 10-foot depth, width, breadth over the past 2 years. So it's got a lot deeper through that area there, but it is throwing the gravel up on the townward side. So it'll be interesting to see how it behaves in the next flood, because with the build-up we've got in the river mouth, etc., it is certainly impacting the ability for the water to flow freely and straight out to sea. It's not sucking all that gravel out with it at the moment, but we haven't had a decent flood for a while either.
Yeah, agreed, Neil Ash. Yeah, it could do with a flush.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, any other questions? Team members? Okay.
Just through the chair.
Yep.
Yeah, Helen's
Andy?
right. You can see it's obviously cut out under the middle of the woods there.
So it's a creating on the right hand side, but a road on the left hand side. Therefore, we've got that equilibrium, as the river moves around. Okay, so I don't have a concern unless we're looking at a 1 in 100 year event at the moment. In terms of the ability of the current stop bank network to defend a flood that's lower than the 1 in 100 year event. So there are two other items that I wanted to touch on in this report, if that's okay. I just wanted to give you a bit of a summary of where the project finances are at. So starting with the seawall, current approved budget is 1.071 million. Current expenditure is 778,000. Now that we're not progressing the proposed seawall extension through a publicly notified consenting process, we expect to underspend on that budget by around about 230,000. And just ask committee members to note that forecast cost at completion that's in your report of 841,000. That's a mix of expenditure against the proposed seawall extension and getting the temporary seawall consented. For the flood scheme itself, current approved budget is 11.5 million for stages 1 and 3. And that's a mix of IRG and RIF funds with some small contributions from both Westland District Council and West Coast Regional Council. Our current expenditure is 4.7 million. That's primarily stages 1A and 1B, plus some early expenditure on stage 3 through the investigation and planning and design side of things. And we are forecasting to use the full budget to complete stages 1 and stage 3. Final item in this report is a proposed third tranche of the Regional Infrastructure Fund. So committee members that were here at the time might remember Regional Council's bid to the second tranche of the RIF, and withdrew that in favour of topping up the budget for stage 3. stage 2 is of course up at Canary. And that approach was endorsed by this joint committee and approved by council. August last year, regional and unitary authorities were invited to submit bids to a possible third tranche of the roof. And included in regional council's submission was an 8.7 million bid for Hokitika stage 2 at Canary. The existing scheme is primarily about erosion protection. Parts of Canary Township are vulnerable to flooding in a 1 in 50 year event. So the scope is, proposed scope is stop banks upstream and downstream of the Canary Bridge on the right bank. And a stop bank across the mouth of an unnamed creek on the Canary Tram Road. I think Paul Medwick referred to it as Shenandoah Creek last meeting. And additional erosion protection upriver of Town Belt East above stage 1A in the dairy factory. In November, we received advice that that project was one of 3 that Regional Council had submitted, but it made a short list to go forward to Minister of Regional Development for a decision. But we realistically won't know an outcome on that until the middle of this year. So in the meantime, our intention is to progress testing the feasibility of that proposed scope using the $80,000 budget endorsed by the Joint Committee approved by Council following our presentation of the annual works report last year. Please note that we didn't spend that money in the year that we said that we would, so we ended up in Rating District's reserves. So that $80,000 that we intend to spend on that piece of work next financial year will come out of the Rating District reserves. And that's all from me.
Yes, Tom. Just a quick question, Tom. Fuel prices, the impact of fuel prices on that. Have you worked that into your calculation for your projected outcomings? You know, I know we hope they were going to return to where they were, but they're probably not.
Yeah, that's a topic of, well, it's a live topic of conversation at council at the moment. Bill, our current estimates for stage 3 were developed prior to the current war in the Middle East, and therefore don't include cost escalation related to fuel costs. So we'll have to take that into account as we're moving forward with our updated estimates.
Yep, thanks.
Any other questions, team? Tom? All right, thanks, Tom. So go to the recommendations. The recommendations are: 1, receive the report. 2, recommend that both Westland District Council and West Coast Regional Council commence work on scoping the development of a long-term strategy for the management of coastal hazards at Hokitika that considers all options under the PARA framework: protect, accommodate, retreat, avoid, ahead of commencing consultation on the respective councils' next long-term plans. Have a mover for that.
Happy to. Happy
Thanks,
to.
Helen. Seconder. Thanks, Andy. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Thanks, Tom. On to 9.3, Hokitika Rating District Financial Statement for year ending 2025 and loan information. Holland.
To go through the report, may be easier if we can all go to the green page 30, and I'll then look through it. And with the young start with the reserves closing balance at the end of June 5. And you see that the prior year, the 2024 year, we had $281,000 in our reserves. Going into a year later, June 25, that is increased by $85,000 to $265,000. So there's been an increase across that. what that's made up of is our actual expenses for the year are lower than budget, as you can see in the column next door to that. But contributing to that, I'll just go through this quickly. The district did earn an interest, and that's on the positive reserve fund, and that's average percentage of 2.5% used to get to that calculation. If we then go further down on consultants, so there has been a bit of an audit across the costs, and what was found is that there were some costs previously treated as expense that are deemed to be capital, and if you look at the accounting standards, satisfy those accounting standards. So those are coming through as credits, which is better the bottom line. And so that's given us our movement. And I think Tom was saying that that's money in the kitty going forward. So any questions on the results for June 25? Before I get onto the loan side.
Yeah, the insurance seems quite cheap.
That 7,000. So to put that in some context, so I can't actually answer the question why, but what I can say is if you have a look at the 23-24 year, it has been an increase across the prior year, and there's also an increase across budget. But what I can do is have a look on how this built up.
We will, though, we'll expect to see an increase with that new stop banks, huh?
Yes, there would be. So any additional works will attract greater interest, as well as a risk profile viewed by the insurers and how they calculate that. So the likelihood is yes, there will be an increase. And most probably as we look forward, we'll be seeing greater rate of increases, if that makes sense. On the, if there's no further questions on that, I'll move on to the loan. And what I'll do is, as at the end of June 25, so this is going back 12 months, we had a balance of just on $1.5 million worth of loan. Within that, that attracts both a interest payment as well as the loan repayment. And the works is that interest is accounted for first, with the balance and remainder going against principal. And if we then go into this financial year, at the end of what we're forecasting at the end of 26, is that that loan is going to increase from our 1.5 million to 1.6 million. And that really is net between new borrowing of 198,000 with a loan repayment of 65,000. So that's the movement between the two. And then going into the table, and this is on page 31 green, we'll see that the loans increased to just over the 2 million. And that again is an increase in new borrowings of $460,000. So that's increased loan, and then our loan reduction loan repayment is $85,000. So that takes us to chart 2.013. I think what is key is that we're in an annual planning cycle for the next year, so that's 26-27 year, and the year after that we enter long-term planning. And through the long-term planning process, we will be looking at the term loan of the 27-28 year in capital spend. And although we've got a budget for that year, I think looking at the fuel prices and looking at the work to be done, that will need to be refined going forward and assessed as part of the long-term planning. Really, it comes out of the program of capital works program. That covers that. So if we then come to the rating impact, I'm at the bottom of page 30. The 25-26, so that's our current financial year. We've got a rating for, and this relates purely to the loan and interest of $158,000. What we're suggesting is that that remains the same for 26-27. So that's within this year, our current year. We're suggesting that remains the same for 26-27 year. And then the following year, that will be, as you can see, we've got greater loans that we've looked at the 27 year here. And the last thing here is that equates to about $19 per $100,000 worth of capital value. Any questions at this point?
Questions, Dave? Any questions online?
Not from me.
No, not from, I'm sorry, I couldn't actually hear very well at all, so I've got nothing to ask.
Apologise for that. Thank you.
I got it.
Andy?
Our income was only 109,153. And we rated 158,000.
So this over here, and the way it's been shown is that the rating for the loan isn't included. This is purely the operational and maintenance costs. So the loan interest and the loan repayment is sitting outside this calculation. So the way to actually look at it is that we rated 158 outside of this calculation. Our 25 and 6 years, 25 and 6 years, our capital portion was 65,000 with the difference going to interest. And interest is roughly around the 4%, which has been advised by Bank and part of the LGA. So that's now on that. I think it's relevant is that that has changed from previous years to 25, 26, which is all put together. And my understanding is the committee's felt that was giving a more complicated picture and muddying the water a bit. So that's my understanding. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry. If you have a look at the bottom of page 30 green, that gives you the rating amount, which isn't included in this here. Okay.
And Colin? All right. It's recommended the committee resolve to receive the report that Colin's just presented. So I'll move for that. Thanks, Riley. Seconder. Thanks, Andy. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. All right, on to 9.4, Hokitika Annual Works Report 2025.
Right, so Oliver Rose is our area engineer. He's online, he's joining online. Unfortunately, I have organised a workshop that he's got to attend and this at the same time, so it is unfortunate. So he's come out and needs him, just give the report.
Thanks, Oliver. Over to you.
Awesome. Just making sure that everyone can hear me. Helen, Ashley. Sorry.
Yep, got your good bud.
Awesome.
Yep.
Sweet. So I've made a bit of a error in the cover of this report, and I didn't put the recommendations on the front page, but they are in the report. So we'll get to the recommendations at the end, and you might just have to read those out from the report, Colin. So basically, I'm just going to go through the annual works report for the 24-25 financial year. So yeah, we are talking about a financial year that, yeah, it's quite a while ago at this point. So there was $10,892 of maintenance works which were carried out. Henry Adams did a job on one of the groins, just the Hadlin Street groin there. And that was sort of emergency works. There was quite a bit of erosion happening there. So they come in with a digger and put a bit of rock in. We had, there was a few, in the financial report, it notes that there was transfers made. So some consultancy costs that were charged against the rating district looked to be credited back. So that's why in the report, it's noting a credit of 23,707 for consultants, taking into account 9,953 for 2 different inspection reports from our coastal engineer, Michael Ellis, $3,970 for some beach cross sections to meet resource consent conditions, and monitor the profiles of the beach and how they change over time. And then the credit back from Becker Consultants, that I think that was a temporary seawall charge. So yeah, so total credit back to the rating district account is 23,707, which is also referenced in the financial report. Then I've got just a note here, yeah, capital summary is referred to the capital report, but that's already occurred. So we'll jump over to the next page. Another credit from Hokitika seawall resource consenting, and that's, yeah, so there's another $7,210 which has come back into the account, is my understanding. So that was reversed and recoded to the temporary seawall project. We had, and that's basically all that occurred in the 24-25 financial year that I can comment on here. Now we're going to go into the maintenance works which were carried out in the 25-26 financial year. So to date, because we're currently in that financial year, we had some beach surveys done by Elliott Sinclair again, just to meet the resource consent conditions. We had another inspection report done by Michael Ellis again to meet the conditions of consent, and they're about $5,000 a pop. So the total work so far to date this financial year is $6,555. There's some proposed maintenance works which one of them I'm definitely looking to complete by the end of this financial year, or before the end of this financial year, but we'll see how the other ones go. So we've got $1,000 just to get our in-house VCS business unit to do some spraying on the rubble of stage 1B, because there's a bit of vegetation, a bit of weed that's coming up and growing through the rubble there. Western District Council takes care of the crest and the grass on the other side, but just the rubble, there's a bit of weed coming up, so we might spray that. So we're working with Western District Council on that, just making sure that they're all good with us taking a ute across and spraying that. There's some vegetation maintenance which may get done at Canary to be able to get access and visually see the rock work. That's not accurately scoped, and that's just sort of carrying over from previous reports. So whether that will get done or not, I'm not sure. And then there's a line item there for unforeseen maintenance. If something needs to happen, I don't need to come back to the committee to get approval. So that's just $10,000 there for unforeseen maintenance. So a total of $16,000 to round out this financial year there. Then we'll move on to the rating district balance. So taking into account all the expenses which have occurred to date this financial year and the expenses projected there in the $16,000 to round out this financial year, taking into account insurance, staff time, and everything, and the previous financial year's closing balance, I'm estimating, with the help of Paulette, another area engineer, that you guys are going to have $475,000 at the start of the 26-27 financial year, which is above your prudent reserve. However, we're likely going to be cutting down on that in some later items. Yeah, so proposed rates for the 26-27 financial year. Again, I'm allocating some money aside there for the beach cross sections, which we have to get done. I am hoping to do those in-house with the LiDAR drone that we've got, which is far more efficient, and we get a far better result than just your typical cross sections. But nonetheless, I'm putting it in there just in case we don't end up doing that in-house and we do have to farm it out. And based on the cost of previous inspection reports to meet resource consent conditions, I've noted 2 times 6 monthly reports from our external coastal engineer in there, some vegetation maintenance. That's just an estimate, so I've just put $5,000 in there. Other maintenance, again, that's just any unforeseen maintenance, really. Flipping over the page, you guys approved in the minutes of the previous meeting, I just saw it on one of the pages, that there was $70,000 that was approved for maintenance on the seawall, which never occurred. So that's sort of still, in a sense, approved from your previous meeting, but it's unspent. So at the moment, it's hard to get an accurate gauge on exactly what it will cost to do repairs on the seawall, because you need to sort of dig up the seawall to understand what needs to be done. And with the beach at the height that it is, it's hard to understand what the toe of the seawall is doing as well, because I can't see underneath the sand. So if there's a little bit of slumping at the toe in sections, then that's additional scope that I'm not factoring in right now. So potentially we could, yeah, I guess I can cover that now. A lot of the rock on the seawall is just undersized. It's quite small rock and it doesn't actually meet the design specification. So I've been working in with our chief engineer and our coastal expert, and they're basically recommending that, yeah, the rock size is actually small on the seawall and it doesn't actually meet the current specification. So there's a question around what do we do about that? And one solution that they've come up with is certainly it would be good to get the crest rock to be a larger size. But again, the rock is considerably undersized, and it's not just the surface, rubble that exists that's been pushed up onto the top of the crest. It's basically every rock on the entire seawall is undersized essentially. So what we've come up with is an idea to strip down basically 600 millimeters on the crest of about a 2 meter width, and replacing that rock with larger stones essentially, to sort of at least shore up the crest and have a far better cohesive structure at the top. So I'm not the coastal expert, I'm just going off what Peter and Michael have said, but essentially I'm requesting that we approve $140,000 of potential spend. Again, it's not tendered, it's not currently priced, and the scope's still being finalized. But it would be to spend up to $140,000. So taking into account the $70,000, which was previously approved from you guys, and approving an additional 70, that doesn't mean we're going to spend the 140. It just means that we've got the flexibility there. And there's multiple reasons why it might be wise to approve and do a larger scale job in one go, because it's such a hot spot on the seawall. It would be better to do one cohesive remediation than do multiple different jobs. And sure, Helen. Sorry, you're muted. I can't hear you, sorry, Helen. I'll just carry on. So I've basically covered off what I wanted to cover off there. So I guess we'll leave that for the recommendation and then see what you guys say about it. Other recommendations in the report here is that I'm recommending a rate strike of basically what Colin said is 157,823, but I can happy to go off what Colin stated in his financial report of 158,000. I think he summed up to, and moving on to general business. On the final page, I've just got an infographic to show a comparison of two different surveys that I've done with our LiDAR drone, and it's basically a heat map which shows red and blue of both where the red is where the beach is actually dropped between the two different surveys, and where you see blue, it's a graded. So these surveys is a 2020 versus 2025. So it's basically just showing you a heat map of how the sediment is changing on the beach over time, rather than simply looking at only a cross section, which can give you some good information, but it doesn't really give you pattern tracking. So this is our goal, is to basically produce these sorts of heat maps and produce far better outputs than the sparse cross sections, which you can see noted on the map. They're all the historical cross sections which have ever been done on the beach. So anyway, that's just a visual representation for anyone that was curious about what we're doing there on the beach. And the bottom info pane is showing that the size of the rock is quite rubbly, simply. And it hasn't really changed since it was installed. So yeah, happy to talk about that further with anybody if they have any questions, but happy to move on to the recommendations there, Colin.
Helen?
Yeah, I've just got some questions for we do, if that's all right. And thank you very much. Great report and great narration to go with the report. I'm a little bit concerned because that's what you're talking about for financially won't cover the amount of rock that you're talking about for the length of that run, plus the height, breadth, depth, whatever. So where is the rest of the funding to come from to enable that bolstering of the stop bank?
So again, it's a tricky one. We're not going to be able to replace all the rock on the seawall. That cost would be too great. What the proposal is at the moment is to basically strip the crest down about 600 millimeters, because we can't exceed the height of the current resource consent condition of a nominal height of 5.5 meters. So we basically had to strip the crest down to be able to install larger size rock, which is the recommendation from our coastal expert in any technical report which has been done by other external parties such as Becker or so a full cost estimation hasn't been completed for what it might cost, because it's still in planning stages at the moment. But it's not to replace all the rocks on the seawall. It's to strip the crest down 600 millimeters and replace that with larger rocks, essentially.
Thank you. I get that. But to remove and then replace with bigger rock, we're going to be looking at a lot of money there, a lot of money.
Yeah, you're looking at 600 meters of lineal meterage, 2 meters wide. So you're sort of talking 3 rocks width along 600 meters. So it'd be a couple of thousand ton. It'll be close to $140,000, especially once you have to do the stripping as well.
You reckon that would cover the stripping as well as the purchase of the rock and the placing of it?
I'm not sure exactly what the final cost will be for the stripping, but a placement of the rock itself would likely be $55 to $60 a ton at a guess. I haven't market tested that number.
Yeah.
So if you go 2,000 ton times by $60 a ton to be conservative, I think it should be under that, but you're looking at that would be 120,000.
Yeah. Okay. I know what you're saying about the rock, because when my predecessor was involved when some of that work was done, and I did question, I did question the size of the tow rock. What was going in wasn't tow rock. Tow rock's massive. And there's an awful lot of rock that's gone down onto the beach that is potentially salvageable, but it's so small it's not worth anything. But I just wonder whether we'd be getting a bigger bang for the buck if we actually lined what's there with the bigger rock rather than strip. Use that rock to line that, because you've already got that armory there. And if you've got the bigger rock in front, then that I would have thought would have perhaps given it more protection.
Yeah, I guess I'm simply going off what the chief engineer and what the coastal experts are commenting on is the rock size is too small. So their recommendation is to not increase the height of the wall, but to replace some of the rock which is there. And I hear what you're saying, and it's something that I'll take away and discuss, because the question does come back to what do we do with the rubble that is stripped? Do we cart it away, or do we place it on the seawall, or do we stockpile it? So there's other considerations to be made here.
And it's really good. Look, I really appreciate your knowledge and your ability to speak on this. It's great. I'd certainly like to have some more information come forward on this, because it does worry me that it could be a cost that sort of runs away with us a wee bit here. And it's the end result, which is what is important, what we're protecting.
Yeah, potentially one thing we could do, I don't know the standard process here, we could try and limit the tender to $140,000 and use that money to get to where we get to, basically. Could be one option, but
Just on that point, Oliver, maybe Daryl can assist us here. Daryl?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Ollie. Look, what I would recommend here is that once we work through proper estimation and even tendering, etc., that we keep this committee updated. And if we're within the cost envelope for the top replacement of the material, and it's within budget, then all good, we'll proceed. If we're looking at some cost escalation or additional cost, we'll just come back to the committee, and we've done that quite often just by email without needing to bring everyone together, especially if it's only 10 or 20,000 above the cost estimate. If it's any more than that, we'll have to reconvene. If it's going to be significantly more. So if we can, that would be my suggestion of how we handle the top replacement of the material. In terms of some of the other things you raised there, Helen, what we could do is looking at staging any further upgrades, and especially with bigger rock, of the rest of the seawall, especially the toe, over time, and we can just bring that back as another job next year once we've gone through design and consideration. What I do know is that our chief engineer has had a look at this seawall and has determined that the biggest bang for the buck at the moment, and the thing that will make the biggest difference to protection in a big sea event, is this top layer. Right, that would be the biggest increase in protection that we can give. We can go back to him in a statement of works over future years of what else we could do and what cost. That would be my suggestion. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Does that help, Helen?
Yeah, I'm not overly convinced. Yeah, it's a long wall, and it's the worst thing we could have done was to use the size rock we used initially. I don't think I got sacked over challenging that, but probably came close to it. Yeah, it is an issue, and it concerns me because we've had slumpage before. We've got a lot of rubble rock just disappearing out there into the beach. But it's, at some stage we've got to armour it up properly, so we're not continuously spending doing patch up jobs and hoping that we won't get pressure from a significant sea event. I mean, our predominant sea is southwest, which is kind of broken a wee bit from the river mouth and Sunset Point, but most of our storms come from the northwest, so that's where we'll get the problem, and that could be a hell of a sea that comes down. I guess that's my worry, is that I don't want to see us spending money, good after bad. I'd sooner see us look at, what do we need to do to resolve this from a long-term point of view.
Can I suggest that maybe to help inform this committee that once the design has been completed, in terms of the work that Oliver's referring to, whatever that work is, once it's been costed and designed, that the committee be informed, so that the committee can see what it is that's actually proposed.
Yep.
Is that an option?
I'd really appreciate that, and I see Oliver's agreeing too. It'd just be good to have the confidence that of what is proposed.
It would be a shame to cart that rubble away. I mean, surely it can be integrated into the existing seawall now.
Yeah, again, Andy,
Put new stuff in, because you need that small stuff to go into the bigger rocks.
It's fun, isn't it, Andy?
To be fair, there already is a lot of that small rock intertwined, so you don't want to have an absolutely full seawall that is a single cohesive structure. Otherwise, you've got no voids. So you actually do want to have some voids, and there's already a excess of the smaller material in the seawall, which is not as per design of modern day standards. I was surprised when I took up this role that I saw that the entire seawall did actually appear to be undersized, and now looking into it, it is clearly undersized. The nominal diameter of the average size rock, the D50, should be closer to 800 to a meter, 800 millimeters to a meter per rock. That should be the average diameter. But if you look out there, it's more like 500, maybe
Yeah.
500. It's more like half sized. So yeah, the scale is wrong. But yeah, it is a tricky question. What do we do about that? For sure. So we'll have to come back to the committee with what we come up with on this.
I think it's important that as a committee, we understand why our coastal expert is advising that we do this. This is the work we do. This is the most important thing to do. So having the advice from the experts that are feeding into you, Oliver, available to this committee, so this committee can understand why the proposed work is as it is.
Perhaps what I'll get done up would be a memo from both Peter and Mike Ellis collectively, and that can inform the committee.
No, that'd be good, Oliver, along with when you get to the tendering process or whatever the costing process is, that the committee's aware of what that cost is likely to be as well.
Yes, yeah.
Can I just ask, so that the coastal expert, is that Peter? I've forgotten his last name. Peter, that lives up north.
We've got Peter Blackwood as the chief engineer, and then we have a external coastal engineer, consultant called Michael Ellis, who does our coastal inspection reports.
Yep.
And that's his bread and butter. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And Peter Blackwood doesn't live on the coast, does he?
Nobody comes roughly once a month or so. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the committee members are happy with that approach? Okay, all right. So any other questions of Oliver before we go to the recommendations?
No, I'd just like to thank Oliver for your thorough report and ability to speak to it. Brilliant.
Agree with Helen there. Yeah, thanks, Ollie. Appreciate it.
Just a question. Is that starting to fail now? Ollie, or not?
So repeat that, Andy.
Is that seawall starting to fail?
I wouldn't say it's.
No.
I would say it's performing as it was intended when it was installed, and I've looked at comparative images and videos, and it doesn't appear to have changed really at all. It's more just the size of the rock was incorrect, likely when it was installed, and now we're picking up on that, and it's what do we do about that?
So you wouldn't class it as urgent?
I'm not necessarily saying this is something that we need to do tomorrow, but hence why work hasn't been done, because we do want to understand the best outcome here. We don't want to be wasting money for no reason, and we don't want to do a small $50,000 job and then need to come back again in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. We may as well do larger scale work, but we could do yearly based work and stage things, but I wouldn't want to be doing any work that's, I'm just putting out a number, but less than $50,000, because you're just interrupting all of the traffic that walks along there. You would likely have to cordon the area off, public notification. You're going to have a lot of people asking a lot of questions about the job as well. So it would be good to do it in larger chunks.
And you've also got to work in with the penguin season too, because we've been in strife with them before.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Ollie. So the recommendations as per page 36 of Ollie's report, that the Hokitika Joint Committee, 1, notes the maintenance works completed during the 2024-25 financial year and works undertaken to date in the 25-26 financial year. 2, notes the proposed maintenance works to be completed for the remainder of the 25-26 financial year. 3, approves a rate strike of $157,823, excluding GST, for the 2026-2027 financial year as outlined in section 9. Approves a total seawall maintenance budget of up to $140,000, comprising the previously approved $70,000 and an additional $70,000 as outlined in section 9 of Ollie's report, noting that the final cost is subject to confirmed tow condition and tendering pricing, and that specific approval is required as the previously approved $70,000 would otherwise revert to the prudent reserve if unspent. Do I have a mover for those recommendations? Thanks, Carol. Seconder, thanks, Andy. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay. That completes all matters for this particular meeting. I declare this meeting closed at 3:13 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. All online. Thank you, everybody. And
I think
for
your
all
watch is running fast, Cole.
Yeah, I've got 308.
Yeah, 3:08, Colin. I think your watch is 5 minutes fast.
Was it? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's Colin's time.